Hi everyone, this is Dan Holden, founder of Horizon Comms on Remote Control Season 2.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for joining us for Season 2 Remote Control. Great to have you on. And I think since we talked about coming on, you've been taking up a new role in the CIPR Inside group. Is that right?
Yeah, thanks, Jack. So I've been on the committee for 2 years, and as you said, I have volunteered myself for the role of treasurer for 2022. So yeah, certainly going to be a busy time for us next year. But yeah, really looking forward to it and the challenges ahead. And more importantly, helping the IC community. As we know, it's been this year's definitely been an interesting one, and I think certainly next year is going to still give us plenty of challenges and importantly opportunities ahead for the year, which will be great to get involved with.
That sounds very exciting. I guess this year that community has probably had to come together more than ever. Has you found that within that committee or within the group?
Absolutely, and I think as well, it's there's a couple of bits there. As a group, we've definitely bonded. We stood up as a new committee at the start of the year, and then very quickly, as we know, all got put into the virtual world. So we've really had to adapt ourselves to working virtually as a new group, which is when we've never met face to face, deliver content events. I suppose the same as in the day job. But we've really supported each other and had to, especially when everyone on the committee's got a day job predominantly focusing on internal communications, and then to have the motivation to think about then doing internal comms in the evenings and weekends certainly puts added pressure on. But everyone involved, is passionate about the subject, to deliver events, think about blogs to help each other, and some of the resources that we've been able to put together both through the CIPR and in partnership with a few others. But underlying all that, it's really as well a committee that we can rely on each other. It could be just actually some of our committee meetings have been more around checking in, making sure that actually everyone's doing okay themselves, both personally, family, and to sometimes even not talk about internal comms, and to just make sure that we're there on hand. And we've all been learning this year. There's certainly been no guidebook to help us through COVID. So having just that WhatsApp group on hand to go, oh my goodness, this has just landed on the door, following last night's press news. How on earth is everyone else tackling? And to even maybe just have those quick 5-minute calls just to share some ideas, just to kind of help give you a bit of focus and make sure that you can calm yourself down and have that support virtually. It can often be uncomfortable or hard to speak to maybe people internally when everyone's busy and you're wanting to make sure that you and the team are doing the best job that you can. So it's that extra network of support. So yeah, certainly as a committee, it's been all guns blazing, but importantly, we're there for each other.
That really sounds invaluable support, or a support network, like you mentioned, when things have been so busy, so new, and so ready to change. Certainly at the start of the pandemic, it was almost every day something new advice or new guidelines were coming in. So yeah, having that network on hand must have been really helpful. I can totally see how that would have been something that kind of was used quite regularly and helped guide and steer that group into making the decisions that they needed to.
Absolutely, and also, if I step outside the committee role, I think the IC community as a whole has always been. I've mentioned it in a couple of blogs, but have always been an amazing group. And I often say to people who are coming new into the profession, in a way, you're not really competing with each other in terms of internal communications. Often marketing and looking at new ways of sales and generating leads. But for us, communicating with our employees, that's not quite necessarily the case. And I've certainly seen, a great virtual world appear over the last 6 months. Whether it's things like the Fort group that's on the Guild app is a great example of something that's grown to allow people to connect who are either looking for opportunities or know of people who they're trying to support into a new role. And signposting to jobs, and traditionally where I think we've all been kind of maybe a bit reserved in kind of putting ourselves out there on social. There's definitely been more of a step up. I've certainly made a lot of new connections this year in terms of IC, of people just messaging direct after a bit of advice or just someone to chat to, and these are people maybe who wouldn't have reached out before. And it's certainly a great community for internal comms online, sharing examples. And like I say, we're all in the same boat. We're all trying to find the best way of dealing with, this virtual world that we're now kind of operating in, in some cases, rolling out new platforms literally within, overnight or 48 hours, where previously we probably would have planned that over months. So the power of that community is definitely one that I think will stay with us, and it's definitely brought us closer together within the profession as well.
Yeah, that's a really encouraging outcome, I suppose, of the crisis has been that togetherness that you're describing, to sound something that would be great for it to continue if we're in less choppy waters, and whenever that is. That sounds like it'd be really beneficial to the profession, and especially people new into the role. I mean, goodness me, anyone new into an IC role this year must have been wondering what they did to deserve it, I suppose.
I think absolutely. I've spoken to one or two people who've gone straight into their first comms exec kind of role and gone, wow, this really was what I was expecting. I think they certainly embraced it, and I think it's a great what great learning opportunity at the same time. In terms of you'll never have planned that 12 months before, but equally the pressure that people are under, of tight deadlines, trying to interpret everything that's going on in the world around them. It's unprecedented, and it's something that we're all getting to grips with. But yeah, definitely, I think a lot of our events on the CIPR Inside group have been more accessible, and we're reaching people that previously we didn't. So we did an event couple of months ago for those that are new into the profession, our Stepping Up series, and it was amazing to have someone join from Dubai, someone join from South Africa, who probably 6 months ago we wouldn't have had that either.
Yeah,
it would have been a very UK based audience, and and we're seeing even at the senior levels of things like charterships, more people coming globally together, because we're all in the same situation across the globe. It's yes, there's cultural differences that we need to consider, but actually, whichever country we're in, we're all kind of facing this same situation. So that community, I think, links definitely increasing. Just last week, we posted out some of our measurement reports, and I had one go out to Botswana, again one to Dubai, States, and Canada. So it's really showing that actually we're coming together, I think, a lot more closer as a profession, and that can only be a good thing for us long term. I'm convinced that those conversations will carry on, and actually we're starting to get insights into different ways of working that we didn't think about. So it's for me, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's really good. And you mentioned there about some of the opportunities to learn with the tight deadlines, the pressure of change. And I think that's really where I wanted the focus of this conversation to be around. Was I saw some of the posts from your Horizon Comms blog around well-being, and a couple of the episodes on remote control have been around how internal comms teams can help make sure that the mental health and well-being of the employees is looked after, and or still on the radar. But it'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts on how you think the internal comms teams themselves and the profession themselves have taken the time to look after their own well-being when it's been so busy. It feels like maybe it could easily be neglected.
I think you've hit nail on the head, and it was an interesting one when I did some of those blogs, because originally the focus was on how can I share my experiences with others of supporting wellbeing initiatives in organisations, where actually what was becoming quite apparent, I was experiencing myself, as well, plenty of other people, and still are, is that being I suppose people, we're always thinking of others, and working the extra hours to make sure that we're doing the best we can for our colleagues, to make sure they've got the right information, everything's timely. That, like say, your own well-being often goes on the back foot, and it's almost sometimes when it's a bit too late that you kind of weeks down the line thinking, I've just been running 110 miles an hour and not had the chance to stop yet. And like I say, it's it's absolutely vital that throughout this you have to give yourself that time to put yourself first, and to have those breathing spaces. And I think that's definitely, I know as an inside committee where we changed the focus of our meetings to go from actually to stop thinking about planning content 6 months out and what the next event is, but actually just to really check back in how everyone's doing, and to try and also support others as well, like to pick up when someone isn't quite themselves, and is there a way that you can support. I think it's very easy that we end up working at home, dealing with the influx of emails, trying to turn around content, doing video recordings remotely, and that before you know it, you think, actually I've gone, it's now 4 p.m, and I didn't even stop for my lunch break. So I think some of it's those, we're pushing out content to help with well-being, reminding colleagues to take breaks, to go outside, and that the business doesn't expect them to be working 24/7, that actually we need to make sure we're doing that ourselves. That we need to step away from the computer and give ourselves a lunch break. Our bodies will only function as well as we're looking after them, and that's both mind, soul. So it's important that we take on our own advice. I found sometimes I get to the end of the week and you've been so engrossed in drafting, proofing, and publishing content, that actually, have I taken the view of the employee and read what that advice is saying and thought to myself, am I actually taking on board some of those points? And I think that's common right across the internal comms board at the moment. There's some great groups that have set up that provide support, both formally and informally, and they've been an absolute blessing for me to have those communities again on hand, and actually have someone else go, are you looking after yourself, rather than me telling others, are they looking after themselves?
Yeah, it definitely feels that everyone kind of needs that nudge to maybe look at their own situation, and being concerned, like you say, being people as in internal comms teams and professionals, that it's very easy to slip into the trap perhaps of just focusing on everyone else, and just having someone check back on you would be a kind of a nice reminder. I wonder if there's anything that you've seen is in terms of being that person to nudge someone else. What type of signs could people look for to see that someone's maybe not themselves? It seems like it might be harder in a remote environment because you can't see perhaps their body language outside of a 30-60 minute video call. I wonder what else we could look for to try and just check in on someone.
Yeah, and you definitely, it definitely been, like say, that virtual space is, you like say, you're not picking up body language as much when we're grabbing a coffee in the breakout area. So interesting, just last week I did my mental health refresher course. So a couple of years ago, I did the 2-day first aider course for mental health, and it was interesting last week, and that same topic was top of the agenda there, about how do you spot those signs. So firstly, if anyone is thinking about it, I'd highly recommend those courses that was run through Mental Health First Aid England, and I think it really gets you thinking about the well-being of others, and it's kind of thinking, actually, are people maybe starting to switch off their video cameras more often with you than they were before? What's is it telltale signs that maybe people are have gone from getting into that mind space of I'm up still regularly, I'm up, showered, dressed for work, and ready for the day ahead, So have you noticed a change in colleagues actually going, they're kind of in their PJs for most of the day, which wasn't like them maybe a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Thinking about the environment they're in. So, it's being aware of, I've got colleagues who live on their own. So it's being aware that actually, if they've not got meetings in the diary, that perhaps they aren't talking to people as often. And have you gone from hearing from someone each day, like who logs in first thing, sends you that quick direct message going, oh, morning, how's everyone, to going, actually I generally don't hear from them now until I message them first. And it's those really subtle things that are hard each day to notice are changing, because like I say, we're probably all logging in busy as ever, to actually going, well, yeah, actually that person isn't quite as maybe upbeat themselves. To even things like tone of voice, on the phone, like, are they as chipper as they were, when you used to speak to them? Are calls, just as long, or perhaps are they being quite, not rude, but short on the phone and, keen to get off? And just thinking about what people were up to at the weekends, are they kind of starting to say that they're not going out for fresh air or walks, and actually they've been in all weekend, is definitely going to change how someone emotionally is going to be feeling for the week ahead. I was certainly very guilty of only just this week, I've taken my first week off since March. And again, that was, through no fault other than my own, of not thinking of actually, I'll take a week off to recharge the batteries. And it was only when someone said, actually, I think you need to give yourself some downtime, and, you kind of need to have that switch off from work. And that's something we probably don't notice ourselves. And it does take someone external to kind of recognize the situation you're in, and to recognize the change in your own behavior. So really think about, I suppose, my personal advice and experience is, what are those subtle changes you've noticed with someone on video, and actually, are they the same as what they were maybe a month or two ago? And then I think there's some great tips that I've certainly picked up that I'm more than happy to share about what things I think you can do as a team or with colleagues, to really help in that space.
Yeah, that'd be great to hear some more about. I also saw one of your posts was around you kind of talking about kind of getting outside at some point during the day. That's something I've kind of tried to do, and I think in the UK, as the days get shorter, it's not so easy to do it once the kind of kids' bedtimes are done, and just having to wrap up a bit warmer. But yeah, it'd be great to hear some of the kind of practical tips, I think, things that people can do to maybe relieve some stress, or just move their head into some slightly different place than being really busy all the time. And so yeah, one of your posts kind of went into a bit of detail. So if you're able to chat about a few of those things, that'd be interesting, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of it, there's elements, I guess, two parts, I suppose. There's things we can do during our working day that kind of help support us, and then also how to, the other hard bit, I guess, is that switch off from, when you finish the working day, to then switching over. Some things that I've seen work really well is that actually team catch-ups, for a lot of the time, were always video based, like everyone logging into Zoom or Skype or whichever platform they're using. And the same for one-to-one meetings. But actually putting some of those during the day, to just telephone calls, and putting in your headphones and actually having a half-hour walk and talk team catch-up. And that I've seen as being a really nice one, because it's forcing you and your colleagues to actually step away from your desk, stand up, which is great for your posture, and we're all probably guilty of sitting hunched over laptops and things at the moment, but actually just taking a half-hour stroll around the block, all within social distancing, and all the right ways of doing so. But it just gets you out, and it could be talking about, doesn't need to always be work. And one of the tips that I picked up from an event I did last year of Comms Unplugged is actually paying attention to what's around you. Actually, talking out loud to each other, like, oh, I've just noticed, change in the colour of the trees at the moment. I think it's quite a nice one as we're starting to reach autumn. and to really kind of switch you off a little bit. But again, getting you outdoors, a bit of fresh air, or if you've not got the ability to go out, saying to your team, actually, why don't you nip downstairs, grab a brew, and we'll just put the speakerphone on and just have a conversation while we're sat on the sofas. And again, it's just changing your workspace that we would do probably in the office, of nipping to the canteen. We wouldn't sit and probably have one-to-ones at the desk, next to each other. And it's just trying to replicate some of those changes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Just thinking about the change that has. I mean, you're seeing it, I'm sure, but when you're having a video call, especially as a team, not so much one-to-one, but a team call like that, there's always tends to be someone on the grid that's tapping away at emails or chats to kind of other teams. And I suppose being out and about, you've got that break from staring at a screen, but there's also potential to be a little bit more dialed into the conversation and a bit more focused on kind of the team conversation, whether that is about work or whether it's about a general catch up. You're not distracted by the 1,000 other notifications that are coming into your inbox or your Yammer or whatever it is that you use.
I think definitely notifications are the worst. And, I have days where if I've got no meetings and you're trying to knuckle down to, do quite a detailed piece of content or work on a project, that actually, don't feel bad about going right on my instant messenger. I'm going to turn off the notifications on my emails. I'm going to mute my computer so actually I don't get distracted, so that you've not got pop-ups. And I think I've definitely seen an increase in the amount of people who direct message, and suddenly what was maybe a quick 10-minute call, suddenly people are putting in your diaries as half hour. And even things as simple as my lunch breaks I put in as an out of office block, so if any meetings go in at that time it automatically rejects it, because I just want to make sure that I've got some time in the day for myself. Otherwise it's very easy for all those little half-hour meetings to build up. And also to never forget about all the little things to celebrate. It was one post I remember reading was that actually it can be very easy sometimes in comms, because so much is going on, so much changes, that you sometimes feel that actually you don't quite achieve as much as you wanted to that week. You're still waiting for sign off or something's rolled to the next week. And kick off, maybe your weekly team meeting or the start of the week about actually what was it last week, or what was it from the day before that you managed to do. It could be just something as simple as I managed to tick this off the to-do list, or I managed to take 10 minutes outside today when the weather was nice, and notice that some of my flowers have come into bloom. But it just puts you just in a little bit of positive mindset. It doesn't always need to be the big things of we delivered our town hall and the feedback was really good. Never forget about those small things, which often I think we do overlook, especially during the busy weeks.
Yeah, celebrating those little wins. There's something that we use. It's not quite based on celebrating your own wins, but we use a system called High Five, where you can just give a really informal, quick thanks or well done, congratulations to members of the team, and it's a bit of fun. It encourages you to use a meme or a GIF and text box there to write in kind of what you think they've done well. And it's nothing that kind of contributes to a review or anything like that kind of further down the line, but it's just a nice way to say thank you in quite in an open setting. It's kind of a bit of a feed that comes through with those high fives, and I suppose it's a little bit like that, but just focused on someone else again, as we talked about earlier.
And like I say, it's just like I say, things don't need to be so formal. Like I say, a quick high five, it's great. It's the mental concept of praise and reward, and like I say, which we all appreciate. And like I say, probably not. We don't go out seeking it, but it's a nice feeling when it does. I think the other thing that we definitely noticed within internal communicators is, and it's I think my first blog that really shocked me as to the amount of responses I've got back of people who saying, God, I feel the same, is that feeling of overwhelmed by everything going on, because we're maybe not having those conversations that you can vent, or when you get that email that I rate you, you might kind of quickly vent for a minute or two and gets out your system. Instead, you're kind of getting it on the screen going, allowing things to build up, without talking. So another one I found was, at 10 minutes at the end of each day, I just kind of write down my 3 things I want to do for the next day. And I always, it was advice I got from a boss a few years ago, of take everything in threes. I've seen colleagues to-do lists that go over pages and pages, which is probably the same for all of us. But the reality is that, you're looking straight away at, maybe pages of A4 going, how on earth am I going to ever get through this? And that list just builds and builds. Where for me, I go, right, if all else, that's 3 things on a post-it note that tomorrow I want to tick off. And that could be as simple as booking my annual leave, publishing that on the intranet, and getting that comms plan, over to a colleague. And yes, you're going to have more that you need to do, but you'll feel a lot better for going, oh, actually, I've crossed those things off. That's that bit done, and taking it in bite-sized chunks. I know there's some great apps out there for trying to keep up with everything on the to-do list, whether it's things like Trello, or your maybe Microsoft to-do list. I just find they end up overwhelming me, because I'm constantly trying to make sure they're up to date and going, oh, I need to add that and add that. Where I go, actually, what is my focus for tomorrow? They're my 3 things. Yes, I'll probably get more things done as well, but actually at the end of the day, oh, good, that's done. What's next?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And yeah, I can relate to a short to-do list. I'm looking at my notepad there, and I'd just been on holiday last week actually, and I'd made a little to-do list for when I return. And yeah, there's maybe 4 or 5 things on there which were right. If I do these in the first week when I'm back, that's a good first week back. And yeah, good to say I've already got 1 ticked off, and yeah, it always feels good to do that. And same with those type of apps. I do use Trello, and yeah, I know what you mean about kind of being overwhelmed. And I don't think that's kind of Trello specific. I think that's kind of any type of system out there, because then the need is to make it almost a complete recording of plans, as opposed to an initial focus to-do list. And maybe there's a way to use it where you could kind of triage the huge list into a separate board, so that you only tend to look at the shorter to-do list. But yeah, I totally understand what you mean about getting overwhelmed. It does feel like as soon as you decide to have your work live online, you need it all to be there, and then you've fallen into the trap of being overwhelmed by everything again.
Oh, definitely. And like I say, the tools out there, like I say, is are absolutely great. And I use Trello quite a lot for very project-based work. That looking at, okay, what's on this month, what are the big ticket items. And just personally for me, I found getting into things like checklists and all those other to-do lists and setting dates. So I know these tools are absolutely powerful, and everyone works slightly different. But I just found, actually, I'm losing sight, and I'm getting suddenly looking at a to-do list, going, oh no, because I've not updated dates, I've suddenly got like 21 things that are all flagging due today or expired. Where the reality is so much changes, especially at the moment. So yeah, it's really just honing in on actually what are those priorities. And a big part of it as well, I think, is boundaries. And I learned that last year doing a course called Compass that Joe Hooper from the Mad and Sad Club runs. And it really gets you to think about actually, almost some guidelines about, what is it that's important to you, to make sure that actually, what, I'm okay logging in a bit early, but it's important for me that at 5 o'clock I'm starting to shut down the computer, not get caught, and to think about actually, Sundays, is my day for family or my hobby. For me, I had to really think about that, doing a lot with the CIPR inside. It was very easy this year for things to spend all day dealing with internal comms, quickly having dinner with my partner, and then suddenly going back into an internal comm space to do help with the committee. So having, I think, boundaries of actually, what, Monday, Tuesday, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to focus on me, the family. Is important. And it sounds simple, but yet it's those kind of things that we start to let slip, when we're trying to deal with everything that we're doing in the day.
Yeah, I think something that I noticed, which was actually, I noticed the outcome was that I've not listened to the podcasts I usually listen to. So I kind of fairly religiously listen to football podcast, Adam Buxton podcast, and a few others. And suddenly I had no commute. My commute was about half an hour, 40 minutes each way. Perfect amount of time to listen to all of or most of a podcast a day. And then suddenly my commute was going across the land into the spare room. And it was kind of thinking, oh, actually, at the time when schools and nurseries were closed for me, it was kind of the transition from working very hard up until 5, and then kind of coming down to be part of the family again with no switch off. Was at what did take me a bit of time to get used to, and wasn't what I'm used to usually with the kind of the half an hour, 40-minute. Not sure I should say relaxing in the car, but certainly not fully. Yeah, different focus, and that suddenly wasn't there. It was very much just almost like a switch of being not at work, not at work, at work, and that type of thing. Yeah, it wasn't as easy or wasn't as smooth as I'd given any thought to it for.
No, I think it's interesting you say about not listening to podcasts. I almost found, I suppose, almost FOMO, and I remember writing about it earlier, was that I think suddenly there was a lot when everything kicked off and people were at home. There was suddenly a lot more content in terms of webinars, online events, and content available. That I almost suppose had that feeling of like, oh no, perhaps where before, like say, I would sit and spend Monday night at home, just maybe catch up on telly. I was almost feeling, that was putting pressure on myself to go, oh, but someone published that webinar today about, I don't know, internal comms in the crisis, and I don't want to miss it, so I need to watch it. Where actually the reality is that content's going to stay there, and actually, I really need to watch it there and then. And a lot of, I think, internal comms people as well. It's reminding about, thinking about your continual professional development plans. And actually, yes, there's lots of great content out there. It will still be there next week and the week after. But don't forget to think about what the development is you set yourself for the year ahead. Yes, it's really busy at the moment, but kind of keep to that plan that you set yourself. Obviously review it and make sure it's still relevant. But if you set yourself that by the end of the year you want to achieve A, make sure you are still in the background working on that. I think I went a couple of months without even thinking about my CPD, and then suddenly it's like, oh, actually, I don't want to get to 12 months down the line and I've missed out on something that I could have been developing alongside all this.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I suppose it almost maybe focuses what content you are paying attention to. If you had at the outset a particular goal to get towards, you can really focus on what that is.
Yeah, it's absolutely, things will change, and that's the nature of that plan should be just to kind of keep you on focus. It might be that you've gone from an in-house role to maybe freelancing, or maybe you were freelancing, you've taken an interim. So it's thinking about actually, alongside everything that's happening, all the your quick responses we're having to do. And part of that as well is well-being sitting within that plan. So for me this year, it was making sure that actually I had an aim around, looking after myself better, and actually going, I can't do it all. I can't do the hobbies, the day job, and think about development for the future. I need to make sure I've got some downtime built into that as well. So it's well-being has to. For me, it always sits front and center. And that was probably only really last year that I started to think more about myself rather than just the wellbeing content perhaps I was sharing with colleagues. But there's loads of great groups out there. Comms Unplugged, CIPR Health are two that I regularly go to in terms of both for professional resources, but also for my own well-being as well. And they've been really good at thinking about communicators, but also your own, how you look after yourself. Where's the support services that are available to help you when you're kind of feeling down at home.
Yeah, I noticed in one of the blogs actually you listed a few groups, and yeah, another guest I spoke to recently, Victoria Ford, she also mentioned Comms Unplugged as a really valuable group or commit not committee but group, and to kind of to connect with. So that's interesting that came up in yours as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to their event, See You in the Field, called 2019 now. And it was a real, 2 nights. Appreciate it's not for everyone, but camping, it's open in marquees, and it's really about you developing as a comms professional. There's workshops, on different topics, but also importantly, there's the well-being aspect, that sits there, and that could be anything from laughter yoga through to just walks out in nature and thinking about gratitude that's around you. And it was only on the drive, and I remember it well, it's on that drive home from that event that I was like, I've really not paid attention to my own well-being. Like I say, I've done a lot in the workplace around, employee assistance programs, well-being at work, managers, colleagues, but actually I probably never really sat and looked at myself. And from that, I took a lot, in terms of I do a monthly Fresh Air Friday session, which is about, just taking an hour out to focus on you and others, thinking about things like gratitude, and having space to think and just, switching off. So, definitely it has been really important for me. And it's probably even 2 years ago, I would have, ran at full steam, like weekends, making sure I was busy doing, the hobbies and things that interest me, and making sure that, I've got nothing on tonight, so what can I be doing? What can I be listening to? Where now I've kind of really tried to reverse that and getting better at going, actually, I'm happy tonight just to sit on the sofa and, have a cup of tea, watch some trash telly and go to bed early. I don't feel that sense of guilt that I'm missing out on an online event that I could be joining, or writing a blog post or something like that. So it's just finding that balance of what works for you, but remembering to stop and think about yourself as well.
Yeah, trying to avoid that burnout, I guess, and I saw quite a lot of it in the past, probably 3-4 weeks, where unconnected sources on kind of the social channels I use and people that I follow, and I think even in news articles as well, it's talking about it being really feeling almost as if it's really hard again, that potentially started off as a big shock and a big change, but something that everyone was in all together, and then it kind of coming out of the total lockdown in the summer in most places, and then the new restrictions. It certainly felt like, even if it wasn't restriction focused, it did feel like it did seem like a lot of people were finding it hard again. And I know I certainly kind of got into feeling like, oh, this now feels like it feels like a slog, and I didn't necessarily have that previously. There's a lot going on kind of with the family, and maybe it's something to do with the weather as well, being able to get outside more often. But yeah, certainly, I don't know if it kind of burnout, or I'm not too sure what it would be. It certainly does seem like quite a lot of people are suddenly kind of almost hit a wall and needing something to just kind of give them a bit of a boost again, and maybe it's time off, or kind of realigning their focus, but perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's it's something I've definitely seen. I think personally myself I've felt, but more importantly, colleagues around that. We are. I think the first couple of months was almost it was all new to us. Like, say you've got everyone's kind of I don't want to say excitement, but everyone's kind of, it's those early days of having the benefits of not having that commute for a couple of weeks, and
Yeah.
say spending, where I think, and also a lot of us, our home environments weren't geared to working from home, so you can maybe in the short term go, actually, I'm all right working at the kitchen table for a couple of weeks, where now people are going, actually sitting at the kitchen table, it's not the right work environment. We push a lot in the workplace around things like your impact assessments to make sure your desk's right, your posture's right, where for a lot of people that's they didn't buy a house or rent a house with that in mind, so they just physically might not have the space for a desk or a computer monitor. I think a lot of us have probably fallen into that second wave of going, okay, now the novelty or the thought of waking up, crossing the landing from one bedroom to the second bedroom to now sit in, is you're not getting that change of scene of even just at lunch you might nip down the road for a quick coffee. You might have nipped even just as simple as walking up a floor to see colleagues in a different space, where now I know I'm getting up every day and it's the same room 5 days a week. Which, whilst it kind of at first it was like, oh, this is great, it's at home, I've not had to worry about driving, catching the train 3 days a week, where now I'm like, oh, it's the same walls again, and you're not having that natural, as humans we want that little bit of change. We want to be able to have a bit of freedom. But I think as well, talking to a lot of people, it's because choice is removed from us. I think if the opportunity was there to maybe 1 or 2 days a week choose to go in and see your team in the office, it probably would feel a little bit easier. But it's the fact that I know, for the next 3 months I have to stay in my room to work. I think that almost makes you feel a little bit more confined, and that's where I know a lot of people have got challenges, and it's hard. And a lot of it comes down to making sure that we're talking. I've seen teams do virtual cuddle sessions where people in the team are just on hand on a call, at a set time every week, just to chin wag and be on hand just to help support people and talk to each other. I've heard of people just posting little items in the post when they know that the team are maybe feeling a bit down, just to put a little smile on their face. And it's, I think, trying to avoid what I kind of call forced fun, of where where suddenly someone forces a big quiz onto you and you're like, I'm really not in the right mind space for this. And just having someone go, actually, what, let's just have a chin work, how you're feeling, kind of try and get it off your chest a little bit, and to know that you won't be the only one feeling that way. And it's just important we are just checking in regularly with each other, and linking back to what we were saying earlier, just recognizing some of those signs that actually someone just maybe needs that virtual hug, and or to even say, actually, what, why don't you just take the afternoon off? It's been a busy week, we're all working probably more hours than we would usually, and that's vitally important.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I suddenly got an overwhelming urge to give someone a virtual cuddle. That sounds lovely.
So yeah, and it's those things that in the workplace you maybe would do, if we're face to face. It's just trying to think of, actually, what are those things that we're missing as people, as communicators. We're normally in those meetings, we're normally talking around the office, floor walking, checking in with people. Actually, how do you try and make sure that colleagues have that opportunity? Because it's hard for people sometimes to speak up and go, actually, I'm not feeling great, because they're worried that it would just be seen as moaning, or that, well, everyone's feeling that way. Why should I worry about speaking up? I think we can all help each other out by going, actually, I've noticed that that person's not feeling great. Even something as simple as thank you, like thank you cards, I've seen put a big smile on people's face, and just a personalised note, even maybe flagging to your manager or even a head of department to go, actually, I think the team's feeling a little bit down, and actually maybe just a quick note of, actually, what, everyone, Friday I want you all logged off 30 minutes early, or it will make a difference, and it's those little things we can be doing to help each other out, and sharing those ideas, as a community, going, I've seen plenty of posts on LinkedIn of people going, I can see that the team are flat, I can feel the business, the morale's dropped, what can we do? And sharing all these little ideas. And often the best ones come organically from within the business. It's not a top-down initiative that we're pushing out to everyone. It's just different ways that teams work, of having, I've seen plenty of virtual book clubs appear in the business. And again, people kind of replicating donut sessions were a great one that I've recently got involved with. Of just, some of these apps like Slack automatically pairs you with someone for a 15-minute coffee and donut. And it's all those little informal things we can try and do and see what works.
Oh yeah, that sounds good. Definitely sign me up for a donut session. This just sounds brilliant.
As long as you're buying, that's fine.
Of course. So you actually teed this question up a little bit earlier when you mentioned that you are happy to sit and watch trash TV. Now, the podcast is called Remote Control, and it's kind of shoehorned that title in so I could start asking people what they watch on telly just to get some Netflix recommendations. So this is the point where I ask you for your recommendations. What have you been watching?
Been watching quite a mix. However, I suppose my complete trash telly series that I got into unexpectedly was Below Deck. That's just come out on Netflix. It was on Amazon Prime, and it is literally a fly in the wall about crews that are out on luxury yachts. Short 40-minute episodes, but yet somehow I got to the end of season 8 and was like, I can't believe I sat and watched through all this. But I think the big thing was it was just easy watching. I didn't have to think about it. I mean, there was an element I think as well of seeing people out in the Mediterranean or out in the Caribbean. I mean, I think I took the wrong career. I was watching people, do a 3-day trip and come away with like $2,500 cash tip, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'll probably do that for a week. But yeah, that was my guilty trash pleasure, I think, for lockdown that I've just finished. So yes,
that sounds like a good bit of escapism, definitely. Well, I really appreciate you coming onto the podcast, Dan. If people want to kind of hear or read more from yourself, where should they go?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The website's probably the best one. There's links to my social channels, so that's horizoncomms.co.uk. I try to keep up to date with blogs that I think are relevant and normally are what people kind of message on me on Twitter or LinkedIn about. So I'm always open to ideas of ways to help. I've also got a little online community that's on the Guild app. So again, the website's got a link to that. Anyone's welcome to join it, ask questions. It's a bit of a virtual space as well. Otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn, Dan Holden, and Twitter as Hold Danny as well. So, really accessible, but the website's got everything on just with links rather than trying to remember everything.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure I include a link to the website in the episode notes so that for everyone that's listening, you can get that from the episode description. Well, just leaves me to say thank you so much for joining the podcast today. There's some really great content in there about how people should probably be turning their attention towards themselves and some really great tips and steps that kind of go into more detail on your website. So yeah, big thanks, Dan.
No, real pleasure, Jack. And thank you for inviting me. And like I say, hopefully it helps. And I'm always open to ideas. If there's people are finding themselves in a situation after a bit of advice, I think the more we share a bit of best practice, and it doesn't need to be around campaign planning or strategy. I think some of that day-to-day job role is important. So thank you.
Remote Control, an internal comms podcast by Stream Go.